I recently spent an afternoon wandering around my local mall, and let me tell you something, it was a wild experience. No exaggeration, I think 25% of the stores were either vacant and boarded up or having store closing blowout sales. I got my eyebrows waxed right here 3 weeks ago, and now it's gone. The Bay, liquidating their assets. West 49, which is, or was once the Canadian version of Zoomies, truly a cultural landmark of my youth, now a shell of what it used to be. All sorts of stores selling clothing and accessories and housewares, bakeries, smoothie bars, and coffee shops, all sinking like quicksand. And it's not just malls. Almost every strip plaza seems to have a rotating door of retail stores that pop up out of nowhere and disappear just as fast.
And it's not even like this is a rundown area. Like, actually not at all. Right behind this mall is a subdivision of $1.5 million McMansions, and there's another one being built right next to it as we speak. This isn't happening just in my neighborhood, or in my city, or even just in Canada. It's happening everywhere.
Retail is dying, and contrary to what you might assume, it's not just because of online shopping. In fact, according to the 2024 US Census Bureau, 85% of shopping is still taking place in physical stores. So what the hell is going on? Let's talk about it. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, malls were not just somewhere to buy a sweater or a pair of shoes. They were a cultural hub, a third place for people of all ages to socialize and hang out. Actually, I made an entire video last year all about third places, so if you want to know more about them, I'll leave a link below. But for 90s kids like myself, the mall was a really big deal. It was one of the first places we were ever allowed to go without adult supervision. Being 13 and being dropped off at the mall with your friend for the first time felt like a rite of passage. But malls were equally populated by young families pushing strollers and by old people meeting for coffee and walking around. Malls were for everyone, and there was a lot to see and do, and generally speaking, if you were already there, you were probably gonna buy something. But third places overall have been on the decline for years now, in part due to economic reasons, and in part just due to a changing social landscape. Basically, adults are working more hours and have longer commutes than ever before, while kids have moved much of their socialization onto digital platforms like video games and social media and FaceTime. And so malls, they just don't really fit into the picture as well as they used to. Over time, things change, not the least of which are consumer habits. And Marketing 101 is recognizing these changes and then adapting your brand to fit them. But for so many retailers, it seems like they've done the complete opposite. I don't know if it's cockiness or if it's laziness, but it seems like there's so many stores who just haven't updated anything at all in the last 10 or 20 or even 30 years. And nowadays, they just look dilapidated. Parking lots in disrepair, dated signage and branding, poor lighting, displays that look like they've been through a hurricane, no customer service to speak of, and in the case of department stores especially, a product line that is quite obviously targeting an aging demographic and making no attempts to stay current or relevant. And these department stores in particular, places like the Bay, rest in peace, or Sears, also rest in peace, or Macy's, JCPenney, Bon-Ton, Nordstrom's, honestly even places like Walmart and Target and Marshall's and HomeSense. These stores are pivotal to the existence and survival of malls and plazas everywhere. They're called anchor tenants. Basically, they're large recognizable brands that draw people into the malls in the first place and increase foot traffic for all the smaller stores and pay the largest chunk of the commercial rent. So when these stores aren't doing well, the rest of the mall's in trouble too. But really, this is only one problem of many. It's not just that younger people have different tastes in clothing or home decor, it's that our spending habits in general are different. Generationally speaking, baby boomers were some of the largest consumers to ever exist. In the 80s and 90s, right as they were entering into adulthood, innovation was at its peak, and success was measured almost exclusively by how much cool shit you owned. First, you'd buy a big-ass house, and then you'd fill that big-ass house with all sorts of things like big-screen TVs, and sound systems, and pool tables, and custom furniture, expensive art, knickknacks, the works. But as home ownership has become further and further out of reach for each subsequent generation, spending what little money we do have on a bunch of junk just doesn't really have the same appeal. Especially when you consider how many people are living in tiny apartments nowadays, or are having to move between one rental and the next every few years. Who wants to bring all that crap with them? Pride of ownership just isn't really a thing anymore, and as I discussed in my video called The Shitification of Everything, Things just aren't even made well anymore, so you're not getting good value for your money, so it's not appealing. So many of us prefer to spend our disposable income on travel, going out to eat, going to concerts and festivals and events, basically doing cool things instead of owning cool things. And if that resonates with you as much as it resonates with me, then you're gonna love today's sponsor, Tingly. Tingly is a gift box that offers over 10,000 experiences across more than 100 countries. We're talking everything from helicopter tours in New York City to pizza making classes in Italy and beyond. All you have to do is go online to tingly.com/Nicole, pick out whichever gift box you like. There are tons of different options at different price points. Then you can decide if you want an e-voucher sent or an actual physical gift box. And if you use the code Nicole at checkout, you'll get 20% off. And then your recipient can redeem it for one experience of their choice whenever and wherever they want. No having to decide for them, no having to book for them, having to guess what they like. They get to choose. Tingly is perfect for a last-minute birthday gift or anniversary gift or Mother's Day gift. It's easy to book, the vouchers never expire, and it is so much better than buying someone yet another trinket that they don't really want. Just go to tingly.com/Nicole and use the code Nicole at checkout to get 20% off. Now, this video wouldn't be complete or accurate without talking about one of the biggest reasons that retail is failing, and that's because of private equity. I made an entire video about private equity a short while ago, so if you want all the gory details, go check it out. But the TLDR is that for the last few decades, private equity firms have been ruthlessly snatching up large retail chains and slowly squeezing the life out of them one at a time. By overzealously cutting overhead expenses to inflate the bottom line in the short term, businesses have almost no chance of surviving in the long term. It's almost like when the quality of the product steadily decline and the prices continue to increase and the general customer experience gets worse and worse. Shocker, but no one's gonna wanna shop at your shitty store. God damn, you shouldn't need like a PhD in economics to figure that one out. Sorry about that, I just dissociated for a second there. But yes, fine, let's talk about online shopping for a minute. As I mentioned, supposedly only about 15% of sales are currently happening online, which I have to admit sounds lower than I'd expect, and it kind of makes me wonder what's all factoring into that statistic. Like if they're talking about groceries as well, that would skew it unfairly. But you know what, let's just take it at face value and say it really is just 15%. Obviously, that's not the overwhelming majority, but it's not an insignificant chunk either. There's no doubt that we're living in a convenience culture. Actually, I just made a video about this too not that long ago. You know what, go watch some of my old videos, there's a lot of them. But when it comes to online shopping and convenience culture, my hot take is that a lot of the emphasis on it in recent years comes not from a point of laziness, but actually from an aversion to bad experiences. Basically, I don't think that most people are just too lazy to leave home, though I'm sure that there's some people who are. I think that most people don't have the patience to dedicate an hour or two of their day driving to a store only to find that there's no parking, or that the thing that they wanted is out of stock or overpriced, or that there's only one register open and the line is 50 feet long, or that the staff has no ability or desire to help them find what they're looking for. And well, yeah, online shopping does sound a lot better, doesn't it? In theory, shopping in a brick and mortar store should be superior to online shopping in almost every way. You get the item immediately, you get to see it in person before you buy it to know if you actually like it. You can ask the salespeople for advice and recommendations. You don't have to pay for shipping. You don't have to worry about porch pirates stealing things off of your front steps. Your house doesn't become overrun with cardboard boxes. But in actuality, it winds up just being more frustrating than anything else most of the time. I could probably make an entire video about the death of customer service, and at some point I might, but for now I'll just say that things have changed dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years since I worked retail. The bad attitudes and general lack of care displayed by most service level employees nowadays is crazy to me, and honestly, I do at least in part side with the worker. I'm empathetic to the fact that they're underpaid and that the demands being levied on them by their employers are often way disproportionate to their compensation. I would know, I worked in these positions for years. The customer is not always right. In fact, most of the time the customer is wrong and an asshole to boot. But now the pendulum has swung so far in the opposite direction that even expecting an employee to do their job feels like you're asking for miracles. They act like they hate you and they have no hesitation in telling you so. I went to Chipotle a little while ago, and the employee there acted like I was literally ruining her life because she had to stop horsing around with her coworkers for 2 minutes and make me a burrito. When I asked for both kinds of beans, she audibly scoffed at me and rolled her eyes, and like I didn't do anything, I was being super polite. I paid $15 for rice and beans and a death stare. But it's not all doom and gloom. Not every store is on a one-way trip to see the Titanic on a homemade submersible. That reference will never stop being funny to me. The Apple Store is thriving. Lululemon is constantly reporting year-over-year growth. Costco sales are up over 35% in the last 12 months. REI, Sephora, Nike, and countless other stores are seeing similar success. So what's the deal? Well, it goes back to our previous discussion about experiences. Of all the stores I just mentioned, other than maybe Costco, every single item they sell can be purchased online and possibly for cheaper. But visiting these stores is more than just a shopping trip. What they all have in common is that they offer customers an experience that they can't get elsewhere, and that provides a level of value, or at least perceived value, that people are obviously willing to pay for. Apple stores aren't just somewhere to buy a phone, they're somewhere to interact with new products, get advice, and have the devices you own repaired. Lululemon hosts in-store fitness classes, and the staff are trained to interact with you like a friend rather than a customer. At Costco, you're not a customer, you're a member, and as a member, you get access to free samples and $1.50 hot dogs, and of course, thousands of items at wholesale pricing. Sephora gives out free samples and does product demos and personalized consultations. All of these stores have chosen to prioritize the customer experience over the product itself, and it's obviously paying off in a big way. It turns out that people are more than willing to spend money when they're having fun and when they feel appreciated and like they're getting good value for their money.
My goodness, what an idea. Why didn't I think of that?
And that's an experience that used to be standard, but now it's quite rare. So is retail dying? Personally, I don't think so. I just think it's changing, with the emphasis becoming more about the experience than the products. I think experiential retail is the new retail. But stores that don't adapt to these changes will be left behind in the dust. As my favorite saying goes, evolve or die, and be quick about it. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in the next 10 years, every mall and every plaza and every store is going to turn into like an Amazon fulfillment center that's operated exclusively by robots and AI, and maybe Jeff Bezos will personally spit in every sandwich you eat for the rest of your life. I don't know, whatever. I hate it here. Like the video, subscribe, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to check out Tingly, because you know what? It's almost Mother's Day, so get your mom something that she'll actually appreciate rather than just a piece of junk like you usually do. I'll see you guys next week.